If you've ever opened a box from someone you loved and instantly felt guilty, overwhelmed, and weirdly responsible for everything they've ever owned, this video is going to save you. By the end, you'll know exactly what to keep and what to let go of without regret, and how to handle inherited items without destroying your home or your peace. Let's just say it out loud. This is not about stuff. This is about grief, identity, family dynamics, unresolved emotions, and that one casserole dish nobody even liked but somehow feels sacred. And here's the problem: when someone passes or downsizes their belongings, don't just show up as objects. They show up as, this meant something to them. What if I regret this later? What kind of person throws this away? My sister will lose her mind if I donate this. This is probably worth something, right? And suddenly, you're not decluttering anymore. You're negotiating with ghosts and siblings, childhood memories, and your own sense of morality. Light, fun, casual, no pressure. Just your entire emotional stability sitting inside a Rubbermaid bin labeled miscellaneous. And in a few moments, I'm going to give you a one-question test that instantly tells you whether something is actually meaningful or just emotionally heavy clutter in disguise. Most people get this wrong, and it's why regret hits later. Here's where most people go off the rails. They treat everything the same. Big mistake. There are 3 completely different categories, and each requires a totally different approach. The truly cherished items. These are the things that instantly trigger a warm memory, feel personal to you and not just them. You would actually display, use, or protect. For example, a handwritten recipe card you actually remember them using, jewelry tied to specific story, a photo album that hits you emotionally. These are not clutter, these are anchors. We handle these carefully and intentionally. The meaningful but not to me items. This is the danger zone. These items were important to them, possibly valuable, historically significant in the family, but you don't feel anything at all, and yet you feel like you should. This is where guilt multiplies. The everything else category, aka the avalanche. Let's be honest, this is 80 to 90% of what you're dealing with. Furniture nobody wants, dishes from 1974, random cords. Why always the cords? These items are not emotional, but they get stuck in the emotional category because of proximity. They were near meaningful things, so now everything feels meaningful. Nope, we separate these immediately. The big shift here is you are not the museum. Say this with me: I am not the curator of my family's entire history. You are not required to preserve everything, store everything, protect everything, keep everything just in case, because here's the truth nobody says. Keeping everything doesn't honor someone, it buries you. And over time, it actually disconnects you from the things that really do matter, because they get lost in all that noise. At some point, every estate cleanout hits this phase. You're holding a cracked mug thinking, was this their favorite mug or just a mug? And suddenly you're spiraling over ceramics. Now let's slow this down. Cherished items are not about quantity. They are about intentional preservation. The rule is, if they're truly meaningful, it deserves visibility, protection, and purpose, not a dusty box in a basement labeled important maybe. What to do instead is to display it and use it regularly, digitize it, create a small curated memory collection, because here's the shift. Cherished items should be experienced, not stored. Coming up, I'm going to show you a simple method to let go of items without regret, even the ones you're scared to release. Most people skip this step, and it's exactly why they second-guess themselves later. So let's talk about the thing nobody warns you about. Other people. Because suddenly everyone has opinions. You're getting rid of that? Mom loved that. I thought we agreed to keep that in the family. Meanwhile, those same people have taken exactly 0 boxes home. Interesting. The better way to handle those situations is the swap system. This is one of the most underused and most powerful strategies. Instead of everyone grabbing random items, you do this. Each person selects a few items they truly value, and then you trade. Yes, trade. Because here's what happens. You end up with the items that actually matter to you. Less resentment, less clutter, more meaning per item, and it turns chaos into curation. Other lesser-known alternatives, let's go beyond the obvious. Memory redistribution. Instead of keeping the item, keep the story. Record yourself talking about it. Write the memory down, attach it to a photo. You preserve the meaning without the physical weight. Number 2 is legacy gifting. Now, not later. Give items to younger family members, people who actually appreciate them while you're still part of the story. Number 3 is museum or historical donation. Some items actually do belong in local museums, historical societies, cultural organizations, especially if they have regional significance, a cultural history, or some unique craftsmanship. Not everything needs to live in your spare bedroom. The functional reassignment, turning items into something usable like fabric to quilts or jewelry to redesigned pieces or furniture to refinished statement items. You keep the essence, but you lose the excess. Now, let's address the big fear. What if I regret letting this go? This is the thought that freezes people, but here's what's actually happening. You're not afraid of losing the item. You're afraid of losing the connection, the memory, the person, and your brain links those things to the object. The truth, regret doesn't come from letting go. It comes from letting go unconsciously, when you rush or when you avoid or when you don't process the decision. That's when it comes back later. The no regret release method. So here it is, simple, powerful, and non-negotiable. Before letting anything go, you're going to ask, have I fully acknowledged what this meant? And consciously decided I don't need the object to keep that connection. If the answer is yes, you will not regret it. If this is helping you feel even 10% lighter now, hey, hit subscribe because I break down decluttering in a way that actually respects your life, your memories, and your reality. All right, now we're getting into the part where most people completely derail because what starts as I'll just go through a few boxes turns into 3 hours later, sitting on the floor surrounded by photo albums, expired coupons from 1998, and a deep existential crisis. So let's fix that. The golden rule of estate cleanouts: you do not process a home by item. You process it by category and emotional weight. If you try to make a decision every single object in random order, you'll burn out fast. So the 5-zone method. Instead of chaos, you create structure. Every item goes into one of 5 zones. No overthinking, no hesitation. Number 1 is the keep pile, which is full of cherished and intentional items. Now, this is your creative, meaningful collection only. Not just in case, not I guess I'll hold on to it. If it doesn't feel like a clear yes, it's not here. Number 2, family transfer zone. This is huge. Items that you don't want, but someone else might truly value. Instead of holding on to them out of obligation, you actively move them toward the right person. Sell or value extraction, let's be honest, some items are actually worth money. But here's the catch. Not everything you think is valuable is. We've all had that moment. This could be worth something. Translation, I have no idea, but I'm afraid to let it go. Reality check. Most household items depreciate heavily, have low resale demand, or cost more time and money than they return. So set your rule. If it can be sold quickly and easily, sell it. If it requires research, listing, negotiation, storage, and emotional energy, it's not a value item. It's a time drain disguised as potential money. Number 4 is the donate release. This is the freedom zone. Items that are usable and no longer serve you could benefit someone else. These move out quickly. No second-guessing loop. Unsure? Limited box only. Ah, yes. The I don't know what to do with this, but I also can't decide right now category. Here's the rule. One box, that's it. Not a room, not a corner, one box. Because unsure expands to fill the space you give it. If unsure had a theme song, it would just be I'll deal with this later on repeat for 7 years. All right, so let's zoom out because a full estate can feel like standing at the bottom of a mountain thinking, well, I guess I live here now. Here's the correct order, and this matters more than you think. Most people start with photos, letters, personal items, which is basically emotional quicksand. Instead, you go in this order. Start with low emotional. High volume items, so kitchen stuff, linens, bathroom items, storage areas. Why? Because you build decision momentum without emotional exhaustion. Then you're going to go for furniture and large items. These take up space, they create some visual overwhelm, and are easy to decide on emotionally. Removing these early creates instant release. Last is sentimental items, photos, letters, keepsakes. By the time you get here, you're mentally stronger and you've built some clarity. You're not drowning in stuff anymore. This is where you can actually make thoughtful decisions. Now, remember that one question test I mentioned earlier? Here it is. When you pick up an item, ask, if this disappeared tomorrow, would I feel a deep loss or just mild discomfort? Now, be honest, here's what happens. Deep loss, it's meaningful. Mild discomfort, it's attachment, not meaning. And those are not the same thing. Why this works is your brain is incredibly good at justifying keeping things, creating fake importance, and avoiding loss. But it's terrible at faking true emotional absence. That question cuts through all of it. If your answer is, I guess I'd be a little annoyed, congratulations, that item is not a sacred heirloom. It's just existing aggressively in your life. Now, when everything feels important and nothing actually is, this happens a lot. You hit a point where every item starts to feel heavy, everything feels tied to something, and decision fatigue really kicks in. And suddenly, even a spoon feels emotionally complicated. What's actually happening is that your brain is overwhelmed. So it defaults to keep it all because that feels safer than making the wrong choice. The 3-item rule: when everything feels important, you limit yourself to choosing only 3 items per category. That's it. Example, 3 kitchen items, 3 decorative items, and 3 pieces of jewelry. This creates clarity, prioritization, and emotional honesty. Now, how to handle their favorite things. This one gets people hard because you think they loved this, so I should keep it. But here's the truth. Their love for the item does not transfer obligation to you. Reframe it like it's the item served its purpose. It brought them joy. It was part of their life. That purpose has been fulfilled. Your new perspective is that you are not responsible for continuing every object's story. You are responsible for living your life. Now, what to do when family disagrees? Let's address the tension because it happens. You want to let something go? Someone else says you can't get rid of that. The boundary script is, you say, I want this item to go to someone who truly values it. If that's you, I'd love for you to have it. And then you stop negotiating. Important truth, people often don't want the item but also don't want it gone. That is not your responsibility to resolve. You are not removing meaning, you are redistributing it. If you're realizing right now that you've been holding on to things out of pressure and not love, subscribe, because this is exactly what we untangle here, step by step, without guilt and without extremes. And tell me in the comments, have you ever kept something just because you felt like you should? What was it? Next, we're going to go deeper into the psychology of attachment, and that explains everything. Why guilt shows up and how to dissolve it, the exact mental shift that makes letting go feel peaceful instead of painful, and that final step that most people skip that determines whether you feel relief or regret. Let's talk about the psychology of attachment, because if you don't understand this part, you will keep second-guessing yourself, no matter how many strategies you use. The core truth, you are not attached to the object. You are attached to what the object represents. Objects represent a person, a moment in time, a version of yourself, a version of identity, A fear of forgetting. So when you try to let go of that object, your brain reacts like you're letting go of all of that. But here's the reality. The object is just the trigger, not the source. A sweater isn't a sweater. It's, they wore this all the time. This reminds me of being safe. So of course letting go feels heavy. You're not crazy. You're human. Now, why guilt shows up and how to disarm it. Guilt is the loudest voice in this entire process, and it sounds very convincing. Guilt says things like, you're being disrespectful, you're forgetting them, you'll regret this later. A good person would keep this. But guilt is not truth. Guilt is a learned emotional response to perceived responsibility. Translation, you've been conditioned to believe keeping things equals carrying. Letting go equals losing connection. The equation is false because connection does not live in objects. It lives in memory, meaning, and experience. The guilt flip. Instead of asking, am I doing something wrong by letting this go? Ask, am I honoring them by living or by storing everything? That question will change everything. Remember when we talked about how to let go without regret? Here's the deeper layer most people miss. Regret doesn't come from letting go. It comes from incomplete emotional processing. So here's what you do. Before you release an item, you pause and you complete the emotional cycle. Step by step, acknowledge it. This mattered. This represents something real. Number 2 is to name what it represents. A person, a time, a feeling. Number 3 is to extract the meaning. What did this actually give me? Number 4 is to thank it. Yeah, seriously, this sounds weird, but it works. Number 5, consciously release it. I don't need the object to keep this. What this does is it separates meaning from physical item. And once that separation happens, letting go feels clean and not painful. Let's talk about how to keep the memory alive without the clutter. This is the part people skip. They think the only options are to keep everything or lose everything. Nope, there's a third path. Memory preservation without physical overload. Here are smarter ways to keep what matters. A photo archive system. Take high-quality photos of meaningful items. Store them digitally and notes. Add notes or voice recordings. You keep the story, not the storage problem. Memory journaling. Write what the item meant, what it mattered, why it mattered, what you remember, because here's the truth. You are not afraid of losing the object, you're afraid of losing the memory. So protect the memory directly. Number 3, record yourself talking about it. This is powerful because your voice captures the emotion. Your story stays alive and future generations actually understand the meaning. Number 4 is to create one intentional memory box. Not 10, not 20, one. Curated, meaningful, purposeful. Important rule, if everything is kept, nothing feels special. The future you test. This one is underrated but incredibly effective. Ask yourself, would the version of me 5 years from now feel lighter or heavier if I kept this? Here's what happens. Present you is emotional, future you lives with the outcome. And future you cares about space, calm, simplicity, and function, not 47 decorative plates. The final mental shift. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. You are not letting go of the person. You are letting go of the physical responsibility of their belongings. And those are not the same thing. One is emotional, one is logistical, and when you separate them, everything becomes clearer and lighter. I have created 2 more follow-up videos on this particular topic, and they will be releasing over the coming weeks. So keep your eye out for those. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.